Murmu for our lecture. And after the talk, we can have a half an hour discussion on both the presentation. Thank you, Tanushri, for having a technical paper. Now you see, that's because you are in IIT now, your structure of writing papers and making things look technical, that you have very much cultured, so it's a good one. Okay, we can have a good amount of discussion towards the end. Okay, after
Thank you.
Kashmira prelims. Okay, over to Kashmira Murmu for the lecture.
Namaste. Good evening, everyone. So the topic today that I have taken is Jaina Metaphysics, and I have analyzed it. It is an analysis on Jaina Metaphysics. So basically, we see that there are two types of schools in Indian philosophy. One is orthodox, and another one is heterodox. Orthodox school is the one in which the authority of the Vedas is accepted, whereas in the heterodox school, the authorities of the Vedas is not accepted. In the Buddhism, Jainism, and of course Charvak. So I have taken the metaphysical aspect of Jainism. Jainism has an epistemological aspect, a metaphysical aspect, as well as an ethical aspect. And one of the greatest problems, both in Western and Indian philosophy, is the problem of substance. The philosophers try to understand what is a substance, what are modifications, and does a substance really exist? So in this way, it has been a talk of the town since a long time about the nature of substance. In Jainism, the study about nature of substance and the theory that they propound is Anikantavada. So in Anikantavada, they say that a dravya or an object has innumerable, that is Ananta Dharmakam Vastu. So when I say or we say that there are innumerable characteristics, then we talk about both positive characteristics as well as negative characteristics. Now, what are positive characteristics? Positive characteristics are the one which are present inside that object. For example, in a man, the positive characteristics are height, shape, and for example, you can also talk about family and color, etc. On the other hand, in the negative characteristics, we find those things which are not present in a man. Like, for example, if we take the instance of man, they're not present in the man. It is what he is not. That is distinction from all other objects in the universe. So in this way, a dravya or a substance is made characteristics. It is interesting to note that the number of negative characteristics or characters is mostly greater than the number of positive ones, because the positive ones are the ones which are present inside that object or dravya, but negative are the ones which are not present. So even when we see, for example, a chalk, present inside a chalk are surpassed by the characteristics that are not present inside a chalk. So because uh, an object is made up of positive as well as negative characteristics or characters, so we can say that an object is a complex thing. It is not a simple thing, rather it is a complex thing. And an object has unlimited character, gunas, and these gunas can be modified from time to time. So it is very difficult to know an object as it is. The one who knows the object as it is fully is the one who has known everything. It is interesting to note that in Jainism, as Datta and Chatterjee say, that if you know one object, then you aspects of one object, then you know all the aspects of the entire reality or the entire world, that you know everything. But the dilemma or the problem is that we hardly can know all the characteristics, that is both the positive and the negative characters of an object. So who can know it? According to the Jaina philosophers, only a Kevari is the one who can have complete knowledge of everything. Now, the question arises that is it necessary to have complete knowledge about everything? What about just having a partial knowledge about an object or dravya? So here Jaina philosophers state that it is practically okay, for practical purposes, it is okay to have a partial knowledge about object or dravya, or sorry, substance or dravya. But when we talk about perfect knowledge, then it is not sufficient to just have a partial perception or a partial knowledge about an object. So let us dive deep into the Jaina conception of substance. So there is a distinction between characters and that which possesses the characters. That is dharma and dharmi. So that which possesses the characters is called dharmi, and the object itself, the character itself is known as dharma. So there are two kinds of characters found in every substance. One is essential, another one is accidental. Essential characters of substance remain in the substance as long as the substance remains. So without essential characters, substance will cease to be what it is. Let us take the example of oxygen. It remains as long as the substance remains. Like when we talk about that, it remains in the substance as long as substance remains, and that a substance will cease to be what it is without the essential characters. Then here consciousness is one of those characters without which a substance will cease to be what it is. It is important to note here that according to the scientific view, everything in this world has consciousness. The only difference lies in the nature or degree. Even in the smallest of things which we think to be inanimate, then we think that it is inanimate, but in reality, the consciousness is present in a dormant state in that particular object or substance. For example, I talk about a cell phone. A cell phone might be an inanimate object. It is not completely unconscious as we normally would think. Rather, consciousness is present in it in a dormant state. On the other hand, accidental characters of a substance come and go, that is, they succeed one another. For example, desires, volitions, pleasure, pain are accidental characters possessed by the soul substance. Through accidental characters, a substance undergoes change or modifications. Hence, accidental characters are also known as modes. So, uh, we call them quality like uh, essential characters and accidental characters in English. And according to the if you use the right terminology, then essential characters are known as guna and accidental characters are known as paryaya. So a substance possesses both guna and paryaya. Now there are different kinds of substances in the world. Essential characters of ultimate substances are abiding, that is, what is permanent, and accidental characters undergo modification, that is, the world changes. So here we see two types of things happening, which are normally thought to be contradictory in nature. That a thing can be permanent as well as changing at the same time. The gunas are permanent, but the modifications are changing. Normally, it is thought to be contradictory in nature, but we'll see further how it is not contradictory according to the Jaina philosophers. So, according to like Datta and Chatterjee, they have stated in their book that Buddhists or the Buddhist philosophers state that in this permanent universe, everything changes from moment to moment. That is Shanika Vada. The Jainas state that this is a one sided and dogmatic view. On the other hand, Vedantins state that change is unreal and reality is unchanging or Nityavada. This is also one sided and dogmatic view according to the Jaina philosophers. By doing this, the Buddhists as well as the Vedantis hold only one side, that is Ekanta of the reality, and commit the fallacy of exclusive predication. The Jainas state that change and permanence both are real. A particular substance is both subject to change and free from it, and this is not contradictory because change is true of a substance in one respect, syat, and is true of a substance in another respect, sat. Contradiction vanishes when remembered that each predication is relative and not absolute, as taught by Syadvada. So, Syadvada is the epistemological theory of the Jainas in which they say that everything is relative in nature. Like we cannot say that we know a thing absolutely, we know only a relative aspect of it. If someone knows something absolutely, then he becomes a Kevali. But we cannot say that something is just uh, changeable, or something is just permanent. Rather, it is more than that. So the Jainas say that substance is real, that is Sat, and reality has three factors, that is permanence, origination, and decay. It is interesting to note that though Jainism and Buddhism are thought to be very like addressing the same problems of history and philosophy that the previous theories had presented, yet Jainism or Jaina philosophers have countered on Buddha. So they state that if everything is momentary, the soul also would be so, and then we cannot explain reincarnation, the immediate feeling of personal identity, etc. Liberation would then be meaningless because there would be no permanent soul to be liberated. No moral life would be possible then because a momentary person cannot attempt to attain any end. Consequently, there would be no moral law. Mere momentary states would not even constitute any individual series, because there is something permanent running through the changing modes. The different changing states cannot be held together to form a continuous individual. Neither perception nor inference reveals the existence of anything in the world in which there is only change and no element of continuity. So, this is how the Jaina philosophers have countered the Buddhist philosophy. Now, as I had already mentioned, that substance is of both types. So, it is basically divided into two kinds. One is extended, that is astikaya, and non-extended, that is anastikaya. A non-extended substance is kala or time. On the other hand, extended or astikaya dravya or substance is of two types, that is animate jiva and inanimate ajiva. Animate or jiva is further divided into emancipated, mukta, and fettered or baddha. So what is emancipated and fettered or mukta and baddha? So there are certain souls who are ever free. So they are known as mukta, and there are certain souls who these souls who are ever free, they have reached the highest perfection. They have reached, they do not need anything else now anymore. They are not in any sort of bondage. On the other hand, fettered or baddha are the one who are bound, or they are in bondage. So in fettered we have moving and non-moving uh, respectively, that is trasha and stavara. Now trasha is of four different kinds, that is five sensed, for example men, four sensed, for example bees, three sensed, for example ants, and two sensed, for example, worms, and non-moving or stavara is those living in bodies of earth, etc. Now, inanimate or ajiva is of four different kinds. One is dharma, adharma, akasha, and pudgala. Pudgala is of two types, that is anu and sangata or skanda. So now let's talk about the soul or jiva. The soul or jiva is a conscious substance. Consciousness is its essence and is always present in it. It may vary from in degree or nature, but it is present in each and everything. So the perfect souls are the ones who are the highest, and they have overcome the bondage due to the karmic particles and have attained omniscience. On the other hand, imperfect souls are the lowest, and they have consciousness in dormant stage. In between them, we find the two to five sensed organs, sensed things that we have already discussed, like men, bees, and ants, worms. So all these things are present between them in a hierarchical manner. If we talk about the hierarchy, so the existence of soul is proved by consciousness, and the soul knows things. The soul is different from body. It is eternal yet changeable, because as it has already been stated that a thing can be permanent as well as changeable, because we always see a relative aspect of it, and we don't know it absolutely. Everything is relative in this world. So we cannot say that a thing is absolutely changeable or absolutely permanent in nature. So, owing to inclinations generated by its past actions, Jiva comes to inhabit different bodies. No, it has no form, but so Jiva is formless, but it acquires a light. Uh, it acquires light, and it resides in the body. So the Jiva is formless but has extension. Now, when we talk about light, then light is not something that has a form. Rather, wherever, if we take the example of a small room and a bigger room, and there is light, then it pervades everywhere around it. It does not have a form, it does not have a definite shape and size, but it occupies the entire space present within that particular substance. Similarly, there is no difference to say, in like, we cannot say that we have a bigger form of soul, or an ant has a bigger lower form of soul, because the essence is the same, but the only difference is in the nature or a degree of it. So jiva is not infinite and is coextensive with the body. Consciousness is present only in the body. And it is important to note here that the soul is taken to be something living, that is a jiva. And this makes it quite different from many of the other philosophies in the Western world, though I won't address all of them. Some of them have talked about soul in not so much of as a living entity. So this is what gives a unique nature to the philosophy of Jaina, and it is further stated that a soul's occupying space simply means its presence in the different parts of space and not filling a particular part of the body. A soul's presence in a particular space does not prevent another soul's presence. So it is stated that at the same time also two souls can reside together. So this is what I think is a very unique aspect of Jainism, that they don't limit something to possessing just a single soul, or that there is just one soul. So there can be two souls also in a certain body, and this has been very well explained in Datta Chatterjee's book. And let us talk about inanimate substances or ajiva. One of them is matter or pudgala, which means that which is liable to integration and disintegration. Matter can combine to form larger wholes or break up to form smaller parts. The simplest matter, which is indivisible, is anu. Two or more such atoms combine together to form compounds and are known as sangata or skanda. So, bodies and things are compounds of material atoms, and mind, and speech are products of matter. So, Pudgala possesses four qualities. One is touch, taste, smell, and sight. Now, let us talk about space or akasha. Space is that which affords room for existence of all extended substances. The soul, matter, and matter exist in space. It is important to note that space is imperceptible. That is, we cannot perceive space through our five sense organs, but existence of space is in fact not based on perception, rather it is based on inference. Now, there are two kinds of space. One is Lokakasha, the world where souls and substances exist, that is the world that we live in, and the Alokakasha, or the empty space beyond such world. Now, let us talk about another aspect or the another part, that is time or kala, which is ananta. Now, kala makes continuity modification of substance possible. It is also like space or akasha, not perceived but inferred. It is anastikaya because it is one indivisible substance. It is devoid of extension in space. The continuity or duration makes is a mark of real time, that is paramarthika kala, which is formless and eternal. And when it is conventionally perceived in space, then it is known as vyavaharika kala. But the eminent philosopher Gunaratna observes time as a mode of the other substances. Now, let's talk about dharma and adharma. These two concepts or these two substances are also imperceivable but inferred. They stand for mobility and motion respectively. Dharma stands for mobility or motion, and adharma stands for rest or immobility. For example, we talk about a river. A river moves uh, down the hill. It is the dharma of a river. That is, it talks about the mobility of the river, the motion of the river. Something at rest, that means it is immobile. It is adharma. So, by analyzing all these four substances, we can state that all these four substances have peculiar status. And lastly, I would say that what we find in Jaina philosophy, in Jaina metaphysics, is a relativistic position. It does not take a certain position that this is the ultimate or that is the ultimate. Rather, it says that reality itself is relative in nature, and a bound and normal people like us, we cannot perceive reality or know reality absolutely. So it can happen only when we have broken down all the bondages due to the karmic particles, and we have completely transformed it, and we have attained omniscience, that is the thing present in Kevalis or Tirthankaras, we can say. And another aspect is that it is pluralistic in nature. That is, it does not talk about a monistic or a dualistic aspect, rather it talks about pluralism. Another thing that I personally find very very uh, that when we talk about Aristotle's logic and we talk about the theory of the Jainas, then we find that the three laws of thought in that we have a thing can be A or B. So here this one is defied, or the you can say the rules of logic seem to be defied by the Jaina conception of metaphysics, because Jainism says that a thing can be A and it can also be B at the same time, but thing is you have not seen the greater reality in itself. So it is interesting to note that maybe if we see, if we defend, or if we defend Jainas, then we can say that Aristotle's A or B is something which is very very limited in our practical understanding. But when we talk about the ultimate, or we talk about the greater reality, or we talk about having knowledge about everything, then it is something which is beyond the practical, which is beyond the empirical. Yet some might also argue that this theory can defy the rules of logic. Given that there are two positions which address this issue, but I think that these two positions need to be discussed, to be studied more, and giving a particular conclusion as to which one is the correct one is something that would be quite unjustified. So this was my analysis on the Jaina conception of metaphysics. With this, I'll thank everyone for listening to me, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Miss Kashmira Murmu, for your clear-cut, precise understanding of the Jaina metaphysics. And towards the end, well, you have brought in a really thing to be seen, taking into account the Syadvada of Jainism and the logical law of thought, especially the law of contradiction. Okay, so let's see how it goes. Well, we have we had uh, Tanushri Patel and your lecture. Now both these lectures will be taken for discussion. But before that, let me go with Tanushri Patel. Well, one positive thing that I could see in Tanushri is that the methodology that she has adopted, it's a product of the institute where she pursues her post graduation, because uh, the presentation is looks from the very preliminary idea that it is more uh, technical, and with time I think Tanushri will develop herself to be more technical. Okay, because that technical element already I have found in her exposition. But I have some problems to questions to make. Well, I'll take those to start with. I have certain things to say which we can take for discussion later on. One thing which I could not understand, well, as you said, Sri Harsha was denying the different positions that as you said, he was a supporter of Vitandavada, and that's why he was denying all sorts of possibilities that are before his position. Okay, but my position, my problem is why Sri Harsa is not in a position to accept that unless and until there is a pramana on which one has to debate, why Sri Harsa is moving away from the point that the way the Nayaka says that first of all understand and accept the pramana, then we can go on for a debate. But Sri Harsa is not doing that. He says, well, if you have the conditions of knowing what a fallacious argument is, so even that would suffice for initiating the debate. So this is the thing which I need to learn from you. People are there to interact. This is the position that I could not understand. You are there to clarify. I request people here to interact with Kashmira Murmu. Anybody, any question, or should we? If anybody has any question, please. Um, somebody has written. Rutireka Nayak has something. Avinash, please. Yes, sir. Query
Uh,
something. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Let me first congratulate these two very intelligent students and very young scholars for their nice deliberation. Uh, Tanushree Patel has presented herself in a very nice way, and she has tried to define how Herse has tried to recapitulate all these things in the Pramana, because she talks of Jalpa, Vada, and Vitanda. But one thing I want to know from her, without accepting the Pramana, how can debate proceed? Secondly, you talk of also Vitanda. What is the position of Vitanda? Because Vitanda has a simple uh, thing that one wants to win the debate, and that's why he uses certain difficult things so that he may win. So it is not the purpose of Vitanda to know something, to come to the right place, and to get the knowledge of any particular thing, right? Rather, the purpose of the Vitanda is to win only. So, how can this be compatible with the Pramana? Because Pramana is the Karaka, that is the means through which the Prama can be acquired. On the other hand, this Vitanda, Jalpa and Vitanda, their sole purpose is to win the debate only. Second thing, and Kashmira Murmu has did my spotlight very nicely on the epistemology as well as the metaphysics of Jainism. And she has said very, very nicely that Ananta Dharmakam Vastu, Ananta Dharmakameva Tattvam. So, and it is difficult for everyone to know all these things, because only Kevali can understand and know the entire things, and everyone is not a Kevali, and that's why the Jain epistemology has given a different turn, and Syatvad came into the limelight, because, and that's why he says, whenever you say anything, you are not going to explain in a proper way. That's why you can say Syat. Perhaps it is Syat Asti, Syat Nasti, Syat Asti Cha, Nasti Cha. So this Saptabhangi came into the uh, formation. So it was a very, very nice paper of both the speakers, both the scholars. I congratulate you all, you both, for your nice presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Srivastav, sir.
And one more thing I would like to know from Kashmir, as you said, कि ये Jainism is a heterodox. Jainism cannot be said to be fully heterodox only because कि heterodox and orthodox have three criterion: नास्तिको वेद हिंसकः or निंदकः. Those who do not accept Vedas, they are Nastika. But for your information, the Rishabhadev, the first Tirthankar of Jaina, he was a Upanishad Kara also. So how can we say that Jainism is purely heterodox? Secondly, heterodox system does not believe in next life transmigration. On the other hand, Jainism believes in it. So, from one point of view, Jainism does not accept God, and that's why it can be said to be a heterodox. But since Rishabhdev is very much here, and Rishabhdev is one of the Upanishadkar, and Upanishadkar cannot be devoid of the Vedas, so that's why to my mind, I may be incorrect, because Professor Das is very much here to evaluate the things in a proper way. So, thank you both for your nice presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Srivastav. Well, before moving to Pramod Das, sir, well, and to Tanushri, well, one thing that I could see here is he made a distinction between Vada, Jalpa, and Vitanda. What Professor Srivastav sir was trying to say is that is rejecting the counter perspective, trying to establish the truth. But here Sriharsa is not doing that. Sriharsa is just going on rejecting the opponent without establishing his own position. That is the position of a Vitanda. So Sriharsa is not establishing anything. He's just involved in rejecting the opponent. And whatever the thesis that is coming in, he's just trying to reject it. So, and he's not establishing anything. So, in that perspective, when you have raised the question also that you see the basic understanding of the pramana is not there, but still how the debate will initiate with Professor Srivastav even posed this question. So, and one more thing. What are those characteristics of a fallacious argument that Sriharsa proposes in order that the debate will be initiated? Okay, what are the conditions of a fallacious argument? So how do you know that this argument is fallacious? Because here there is, you see, here in Vitanda, no rule follows because Sriharsa is trying to reject. He is not in a position to accept. Whatever you say, he will try to reject. And he is not giving his own position also. So here, one more thing also comes. There is no rule at all because with whatever rule he comes, Sriharsa will deny. So here the problem rises. I see a problem in the Prasanga technique because in Vitandavada I don't think we'll be anyway arriving at the truth because the Vaitandavadins or the Vitandavadins they will end up denying the opponent without saying anything from their own side. So there lies a problem, and I don't know. A lot of things have to be understood here because Jalpa somehow we want a victory. We want our own position to lead.
Same with the Vitanda
But
also.
here, no position is getting established. And how you justify Sriharsa's position? Number one, as Professor Srivastava even said. Number two, what are the characteristics that we can find out for a fallacious argument? And the third thing, how do you know that at a certain position there would be whatever cognition that we have, it will be not sublated, as you said, by some other cognition. So these are the three things would like to learn from you.
One thing is, Vitanda has been defined as Pratipaksh Sthapana Hino Vitanda. So here one is not going to establish anything, and Jalpa is Vijageshu Katha Jalpaha, because we want to win only. That is called Jalpa and Vitanda. They are just simply countering the thing. They are just rejecting the arguments. Their purpose is not to establish any position. So Jalpa and Vitanda, they cannot be treated as a pramana, and they are not following it. They are destroying the basic characteristic of the pramana as well. Vad Paddhati.
Yes, Tanushri. Well, your presentation, your technique, I really appreciate. Okay, very nicely you're trying to come up.
No, it was.
It's a great attempt. Anyway, please, we would like to learn from you actually. Please, yes, Tanushri.
Yeah, sir. So as you were asking, why do I call Sri Harsha Vaitandika? So as even sir mentioned that the task of Vaitandika is to just deny. So there is not even a question if the Vaitandika wants a victory or not, because even if he comes with this intention that I want a victory, that putting forth the intention of the victory itself would become a position. So, and that would not make the acceptance of that position would not make the person a Vaitandika anymore. So I think the main characteristic of Vitanda type of debate is just rejection. So since Sri Harsha doesn't seem to me to establish any thesis of its own, and just trying to deny, trying to negate anything that the Nayayika, the opponent, is saying. So I call him Vaitandika. And the second question, if I remember well, was sorry, sir. Can you please repeat the
Sorry.
second and third question?
So no truth is established. Only even if somebody learns from Sri Harsa, what would be his position also somehow, and the opponent is putting the same position which your Sri Harsa has in mind, then also Sri Harsa will deny that position because Sri Harsa has no position then. Because
Yeah,
because even his own position will be denying because he doesn't want to establish anything. Suppose somebody learns from Sri Harsa, what would be his stand on an issue, and somehow that stand is put before Sri Harsa. Sri Harsa is going to deny that position also. So because he is a Vitandavadin.
yeah. So
So
I want to share things. So like while I was reading, I didn't study much about his metaphysics. So while he was discussing his metaphysics, at first so he's basically called as the skeptic Advaitin. Because through the process of this rejection, he comes to a position where he understand that there is non-dual Brahman, and this non-dual Brahman can be experienced through mystical experiences. So I have not gone through that. I was only concerned about his debate and logics.
okay, Tanushri, if that line is true, if the last line is true, then many things would be solved. If as you said that Sri Harsa is an Advaitin, and this technique of Vitandavada that he, as you said, the Prasanga technique that he is adopting to reject whatever thesis is coming before him in order to, and if somehow supports the technique of Neti Neti to reach at some mystical height, okay, is the thing that you are trying to say? Then maybe I think okay, I think I could get something from you, but Sri Harsa in the context of Pramana, okay, it becomes a bit of a problem for understanding because there is no intention of establishing the truth. Number one, number two, whatever comes, good or bad, right or wrong, there is simply a rejection. But if this technique of rejection, not this, not this, not this, not this, if, as you said towards the end, if he is on the path of mystical path, trying to deny everything that comes of physical, okay, material, then I think some substance comes out of it because, as you said towards the end, he's an Advaitin. Maybe this technique he is trying to explore to reach at that reality who is beyond the physical comprehension. If that is the thing, then I could get a lot of things from Sri Harsa. My understanding, I may be wrong. Okay, as per your understanding, that I understood from what you say. Number one. Number two, the thing that I was trying to ask you is what Sri Harsa, as you said, the Sri Harsa says, as you said, that there is a need to understand the characteristics of a fallacious argument, and there is no need of understanding the pramana. So this is another area which I want to learn from you. What would be those characteristics of a fallacious argument that Sri Harsa supposes? This is the second point that I wish to raise.
Yes, sir. So since he is a Vaitandika, he would never agree he would never pre-establish this characteristic of for the fallacious argument. So he says everything depends on the context, like what is the debate that you are debating for, and let the debate or the context decide the pramanas, or what he would say the characteristic of fallacious argument.
Okay, thank you. Because that is Vitanda, everything is possible. So he will
Yeah,
take every plea to find fault with the opponent. So that's
yeah,
the,
sir.
he will find every he will turn everything to find fault in the opponent, and that's how he moves. Okay, thank you, Kashmira. Well, Professor Pramod, yes, please
I
unmute.
want to just
Please
Uh,
unmute.
yes, so, a last thing I would like to clarify: we should not think that this Sri Harsha he intended to reach this metaphysical position due to which he becomes a Advaitin. Instead, it is the commentator who called him as Advaitin, and it is only through the process of epistemology he reached to that metaphysics.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it is the opponent who calls him as the Advaitin, the interlocutor.
Yeah, like it is the commentator who
It's
comments
the
on the
commentator who
Khandana.
calls him as
They
Advaitin.
call him.
Okay, thank you. Over to Professor Das.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. Mm, Actually, I am not well versed about the horse's philosophy, but I enjoyed the last part of the discussion, and I find the similarity between um, Vitandavada for Sri Harsa and Jaina epistemology, that is Satvada. They are very much similar in both the texts.
Sir, take voice ta take बढ़ान sir, please.
Hello.
Now louder. हाँ ठीक है. Okay, fine sir.
Okay. So when Sri Harsa is rejecting the possible comments, interpretations about the reality, uh, this is the symptom of, this is the sign of a uh, critical philosopher. When we consider criticism in the true sense of the term, this is the right spirit, because every interpretation has its limit, every argument is perspective. So we cannot establish the truth from any perspective and by any argument. Jaina system has also done that. He has also rejected the possible views of all philosophers that knowledge is always relative. So it is natural, because human mind is so limited and logic has also its own limit. So we cannot describe, cannot define the truth as such. Therefore, Advaita Vedanta, in Advaita Vedanta, Shankar has tried to explain the world, explain the reality in the negative way. Neti, 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 neti. According to Tanushree Patel, she is claiming that Sri Harsha is starting his philosophical inquiry from epistemology, and that is the right approach of a philosopher, to start from epistemology. Um, the presentation is very good. I have some questions to Kashmira Murmu. She said that we can have two souls. Somewhere she has said this. We can have two souls or many souls. How is it possible? Number one. Number two, as there is a question by Smriti Rekha, that is also my question. If every interpretation is relative, knowledge is relative by nature, so there should not be any conclusion. How can Jaina system make a conclusion? Because every conclusion is relative. The same question is asked here in the chat box. So Jaina system cannot conclude anything. That substance is like this, quality is like this, because again it becomes a philosophy, and he is rejecting all philosophy like Sri Harsha. And the second one, and I forget the third question also. Okay, what is the status of a Kebala Gyani? That someone who knows everything, if someone knows all the aspects of one thing, then he can know all the aspects of all things. Is it only a hypothetical statement? If then, the form of if then, if so and so, then so and so, which has no meaning. In deductive logic also, we say If these are the premises, then this conclusion will follow. The premises may be false. From false propositions, we can derive a conclusion um, logically. So is it only a hypothetical statement that who knows all the aspects of one thing can know all the aspects of all things? Because Jaina system rejects that one cannot know all the aspects of one thing. But again, it is said that the Keval Gyani who knows all the aspects of one thing can know all the aspects of all things. Is it merely hypothetical or is it really possible? I never ask questions to questions here, but today I am excited to ask these three questions, and I want to learn from Kashmira Murmu. Please have your response.
Thank you so much, sir. First of all, I'll come to your question, but Srivastav sir also asked me something about system, like is it purely heterodox? So I would say that what we have normally learned through our textbooks and all, that it is normally basically taken to be a major heterodox school of Indian philosophy. But yes, I got to learn a lot from him, because this made like this was like a food for thought. Like, is it really a purely heterodox like philosophy or not? And that I'll thank sir for suggesting. Another one is, when we talk about two souls, then it might seem very contradictory, because there is nothing in this world which is present, where something is present of two souls. So I would just say that this states that soul is not something, this exemplifies or it implies that soul is something which has a certain form. So practically, if we try to interpret it, then it would be very difficult for us to understand. So here again, this thing is stated that only a Kevada Gyani can know it. Now again, what is the status of Kevada Gyani? When when it is stated that oh, by knowing all the aspects of one object, one can know all the aspects of the entire reality. It states that. So I don't think it is like, if yes, it might be hypothetical in a sense, but what I understand from it is that the person who has the capacity to understand the all the aspects of at least one object has the capacity to understand all the aspects of the entire reality, or he has that sort of uh, potential to know it. So it's somehow hypothetical, but again, it might be also be criticized as well. I accept. And lastly, again, the third question, that Jainism should not come to a conclusion because everything is relative in nature. I think, uh, yes, of course, this is quite an important aspect of Jainism, that it talks about relativity, and at the same time it gives the variables and all, certain like substances and its features and all. And this is something that will break the entire foundation of its own theory. It tries to make a theory and breaks its own theory. But for me, this is the conclusion. When I talk about relativistic, then I find that they talk about that this is relative, that is relative. But I find the conclusion that is drawn is by us, the interpreters or the philosophers, because we conclude that it is relativistic in nature. Because in the book it is written it is relativistic in nature. I say that it is relativistic in nature, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't say that I am completely sure, but I don't know if it is somewhere written in the Jaina text that it is relativistic in nature. I don't know clearly. relativity, or it talks when it talks about dravya and all, certain things need to be taken into account, because without certain foundational things the entire thing will collapse. So I understand that this is quite a difficult question to address, because the theory it proposes, again it breaks down its own theory. So that is my submission, that I think that we have inferred it in such a manner. Yes, I was asking about that if everything is relative, then what I'm saying is also relative. My argument is relative, my theory, my conclusion, everything is relative. I think relative does not mean a wrong aspect or a dubious aspect. Rather, it means a certain aspect, one aspect, because there might be number of aspects of a certain thing. So relative does not mean is have be your response regarding the there is another question in the chat box. Let me read it. Ma'am, I have another doubt, that if it is hypothetical, then what would be your response regarding the Tirthankara? And also, I have doubt that there is only Kevada Jnana state or not. I think um, towards accepting the independent status of Tirthankar or the Kevada Jnana, it is again debated. Like, how can you say that there is something like that which exists? But given, because Jainism has one aspect of Jainism is that it talks about liberation as a self effort, and it talks about liberation as the knowledge, as having complete knowledge of existence. So if there would not be any sort of self effort, or there would not be any sort of uh, goal, then there would be no use of attaining any sort of knowledge or any sort of effort or anything. So as a reader of Jaina philosophy, as a student of Jaina philosophy, I would say that there are certain presuppositions that we need to accept before studying Jainism. Because if we don't accept it, then the entire theory will collapse. But again, this puts Jainism in the contradictory forefront, that if it philosophizes a certain theory, then it contradicts it. And that's why I have also say that it is like A or B, but it talks that it is everything, A, B, and all the aspects. And that is where I also find that Jainism faces certain contradictions that need to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Kashmira. Well, from the